Hi guys, welcome. We are here for our STEM Station Spotlight. I have two amazing STEM stations. I'm so excited. They're so excited to meet you guys as well. We're showing this and you guys will be able to leave comments. We're also going to have attached their article links. So if you have not read about them yet, you are missing out. So please go to the articles and read all about them. So real quick, I'll give my little spiel. I'll be right back, ladies. All right, so I am Nikisha Washington. I am CEO and founder of Knowledge and Enterprises, where we inspire and encourage young girls to have confidence, character, in class as they become future leaders. We're kind of biased, so we want to steer them to STEM leaders, but even if they don't become STEM leaders, we want to equip them and empower them with the skills and the tools necessary to become leaders, because we definitely need leaders out here, especially nowadays. It's just seeing, it's getting crazy. So you might ask, well, what is a STEM station? Great. A STEM station is a woman of color that are in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and math that are skyrocketing to their highest potential, but and being trailblazers in their particular field, but doing it with style and grace. And so after you meet these ladies, you're going to know exactly why we picked them to be this week's STEM station. So we first have Faith. So Faith, tell us hi and a little bit about yourself, and then we have Aicha.
Okay. Should I talk about my job or?
Okay. So this one is more your introduction, like kind of what inspired you to go, who you are, what inspired you to get to this point, and kind of your journey. So like you talk about your educational journey.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. So my name is Faith. I'm originally from Atlanta, but now I live in San Francisco, California, and I'm a software engineer. Before I came out to San Francisco, I went to Georgia State University and I got a degree there. I used to work in sales at an events company. And it was good. It was a job that I enjoyed to a certain extent, but I always wanted to do something a little bit more that would challenge me, something where I would have the opportunity to continue learning and changing my knowledge. So I decided that I wanted to continue studying and become a software engineer. I started by teaching myself a little bit about different coding languages for different purposes that I thought were interesting. I liked games, I liked websites, so I started making things like that. And then I moved to San Francisco to attend a program called Make School, where I could learn along with other people who were also trying to learn to become engineers. So I did a year of that program. I worked really hard, I studied really hard, and I recently got an awesome job as a software engineer at Influx Data. I've been out here for about a month and a half, and so that's where I am now.
Wow. So how is it moving somewhere completely new? You only been there a month and a half, so how is it going for you? Are you settling in? Are you learning your way around?
Yeah. So I've actually been in San Francisco for like a year. Like I think it's a little over a year.
Okay.
So I was studying out here and stuff. But the job, it's definitely new to me.
Yes.
It's been an awesome transition though. Like both times when I came to San Francisco, I was afraid because I have family in Atlanta. I was afraid that I was going to feel alone out here. Mm-hmm. But the community at Make School was so warm and welcoming. And I always felt like I had someone I could go to whenever I got stuck or had questions. And I've had the same experience at Influx Data. A lot of the people who work at this company work remote, so they work in different places around the country and around the world. But we still have like kind of a cohesiveness. People are open. People are always willing to answer questions and stuff. So
that's awesome. I'm really impressed that you said you started teaching yourself coding. I said, I'm going to learn coding. I was sitting at my desk and I was like, okay, this is too much. I had to leave it alone. So for you to keep on with it, that's amazing. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. All right, we have Miss Aicha. Please tell us about your journey, who inspired you. How did you get to this point?
Yeah. So I am a second-year PhD student at University of Wisconsin-Madison. It's been quite a journey, and it's not done by any means. But originally, I am from New York City, and I have slowly been moving more west. So I did my undergrad at Cleveland State University, and there I studied pharmaceutical sciences. I originally thought I was kind of thinking of a couple different ways I would go. Originally, I was like, I'll be a a pharmacist. So I worked as a pharmacy technician for all 5 years that I was in college, and I thought that wasn't so much for me.
But you did it for 5 years, then you decide like no, that's not it.
Yeah, for me it was wonderful to interact with patients, but I think long term I didn't feel like it was something that I would be happy with for forever. And so I kind of thought, well, I know for a fact that I want to do cancer research. It was always something I want to do. I know that cancer touches millions of people's lives. Touched
Yes.
mine. I lost my grandmother to cancer.
Oh, so I did too. I lost mine too.
So for some reason, like it just stuck with me from being young to all the way to my adult age. I just knew that was what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how. So luckily for me, Cleveland State had a McNair Scholars Program.
Yes.
Which is a really great national program for any minorities or people who are low income to have an opportunity to be educated and kind of primed for going into graduate school. And the whole purpose of the program is to increase the number of minority PhD holders.
Yes, we love it.
Yeah, so when I learned about that opportunity, I was like, I can do cancer research in a field where I think that I can really be valuable with my skills that I have. So I did undergraduate research at two chemistry labs at Cleveland State University, and then I also applied to do research at a summer research program at an alternative university. So that's how I got an internship at UW-Madison. And it was just such a wonderful experience, and I felt very warm and welcomed at the university that I decided to take the GRE and do the application process to go to a PhD program here. And so far I am 1 year in the beginning of my second year.
Oh, wow, congrats.
Thank you so much. And it's been an amazing experience. It's a whirlwind experience because you step from being like an undergrad and kind of having a lot of structure and kind of having everything organized to you being like the face of the meeting and the person who has to like take the leadership.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's been a lot. Like I would say UW-Madison has a lot of great opportunities that I've been really lucky to take advantage of. And so it's been great. I really love that I chose to do a PhD. It's a really unique position to be in where we literally come into work and we think about science and research.
I know, that's awesome.
Every day. So yeah.
That is great. Well, thank you. The ladies it's just amazing. We have a software engineer, we have a PhD student studying cancer. It's like, man, and this is when I came up with the Sensation Spotlight. I wanted young girls, and even women that might be career changers, to look and see like, I wonder if I could do that. But then they actually see people that's doing it. That's so awesome. That's so awesome. So my first question to you, Faith, is what do you love most about your job? Like, what is your favorite thing to do, and why you get so much joy out of it?
Yeah. So the thing that, and I identified a lot with what Aicha was talking about as well, because I also, for a while, I thought I was going to go to medical school. So while I was pursuing my degree at Georgia State University, I was a biology minor and a pre-med minor. And I did a little bit of microbiology. I worked in a lab for a couple of years as well. So I love discovery. I love fields where the answers aren't always readily available. You kind of have to figure them out. And I felt like in my previous work that a lot of the answers were pretty spelled out, or there were a lot of patterns that you would kind of fall into. And as I've been learning to code, and as I continue to look into this area, it's been something that has continued to drive that discovery for me, that love of like innovation and trying to figure out how things work. So for me, the best thing about my job is probably the hardest thing about my job, which is that, you got to figure out the answers for yourself. Sometimes people have patterns, sometimes people have templates or ideas that they've come up with before, and you can kind of like borrow from those, but you really have to think through, the question that you're trying to answer, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. We are actually, so we're using a programming language in my particular job to write another programming language.
Right. That is, my mind just blown like, ooh, that's amazing.
Yeah. It's really hard because, you know, if you're building a programming language, you have to understand kind of everything about how programming languages work. And so there are a lot of pieces where we have to, you know, kind of go out on a limb and try to figure things out. But I love it. It's beautiful.
I bet. But that blows my mind to think about you're writing a new language. Like that's like, you know, it's like you think about like new language, like if you learn to speak a new language, like someone has to create all of that. So programming language is very similar. So you're sitting there creating a whole new language.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I applaud you. That's awesome. I would love it too. But like you said, that has to be hard because the answer is not there. You guys are creating the answer.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And the language, so it's called Flux, and there are a lot of people who are already using it. So that presents another challenge, which if you're already using the language, and then we make changes to it, or we try to make it better, that changes the way that you can use it. So that's another complication. Like
right. People get upset because they just learned it, and here y'all go changing it and tinkering it. It's like, no, leave it alone. Leave it alone.
Yeah.
All right, Aicha, what do you love most? And I know that you're a student, but there's research and everything. Like, what do you love most about what you're doing?
Yeah. So right now I finished all my classes, so I do kind of function as a full-time researcher. I would say what I love the most about my experience so far is the sheer amount of collaboration. And I don't know if this is at every single university, but it's definitely fostered in the UW-Madison environment. There is a lot of collaboration between different labs so that we can all kind of work towards one big goal. And I would say within that collaboration, I think the chances that I have had to step into like leadership positions and opportunities have been really wonderful, especially for me because, I mean, to be honest, like I say that I love it, but it's also like potentially one of the more uncomfortable parts of my job.
And that's what Faith said. It's like the one thing that you love about it. And I always say that about people. The one thing that they're passionate about, you might love, but then it also becomes too much. Because that's how my husband, he's just over the top. And I love that. But then it's like, okay, sometimes I need you to ring it back in. So It's so amazing how you see that in your jobs as well. That is awesome.
Yeah. Like it attracts you, but it's also like, I don't feel comfortable right
now.
Right,
it's like.
So yeah, for me, like I would say that I identify as quite an introvert. And so like I have practiced over the years in order to like become more of like an ambivert, because in these like collaborative situations and environments, like you need to be the one to step forward and say, this is what I know, this is what I bring to the table. I have this experiment with this experience with these experiments, and this is what I can do in this setting. But that takes being sometimes courageous to step forward in
I like that word. Yes, courageous.
Think are like way bigger than you, and like they have these credentials that make you feel like you're a little afraid, but like you can't really stop. You have to be like, this is what I know, and I'm stepping into this leadership position in this way, even though I might be like a little intimidated by all these really brilliant minds right around me. But it's definitely I think I have definitely benefited in terms of my leadership and stepping outside of my comfort zone. And I think no matter where I go with this degree, like it's something that I'm taking with me. I'm still learning how to do it and do it better every day.
That's amazing. And I love what you're saying. So like I said, young ladies, even people that are professional women, you may feel intimidated, you may feel uncomfortable, but you're there for a reason. When you said you're surrounded all these brilliant minds, I'm like, yeah, yours included. And so, you can't let anything stop you, because if you will let your fear, you possibly, hopefully will find the cure. But if you didn't have that, and like, I have to do this, have your grandma there, cheering you on, then the world will miss out because of your fear. And so we need to let women know, especially women of color, stop shrinking. You don't have to shrink. Show up in these places. Your mind, your thoughts, your ideas are what's needed. Like they need that diversity. They need that diversity. They need your mind. They need the way your experience, your personality. So I love that you said that and you recognize it about yourselves and you still working on it and you still saying that's okay. But you're coming into your own. I can't wait to see when you become doctor. I bet you're gonna be commanding stuff. We're gonna find you on the news, leading your own press conference and everything. I'll be like, I was there when she was in school. Yes, so excited. So, well, thank you for that. That is awesome. That is definitely a point that I know a lot of people can resonate with. So, thank you for that. All right. Okay, so we talked about all this fun stuff and what we love about our jobs and our journey. What was something that you might that you're either doing now or had experienced in the past that you're like, I could live without that, or it's been the something that is the least, you may not like it, but it was kind of needed, or something that you would definitely change in like your work environment or your educational journey, some that. So, all right, Faith, what do you say?
Yeah, so something that became pretty apparent to me from the time that I first started teaching myself to code, to my time at Make School, to my time now working as an engineer, is that failure is a constant companion when you're an engineer. You will fail. It's not about whether you will, it's about how often,
right.
and how much time it takes you to fix it.
Oh, wow.
There's a way to develop code that's called it's test driven. So you write the test first, and then you write the code that's supposed to pass the test. So you write the test, and then you hit the button to run the code, and it's going to fail the first time. And then after that, you write the code, and then you keep writing code until that test passes.
Wow.
So you have to kind of be resilient, but you also have to kind of let go of your ego. I would say it's less resilience and more just kind of understanding that this is it's not necessarily a failure. It's more of just like being human and interacting with a computer program and knowing that not everything is going to be perfect all of the time. And it's also a little bit of job security, because if stuff breaks, then you got a job,
Yes.
Yeah. But that was a hard thing to deal with in the beginning, was like not being able, because I'm someone who I like to do things well.
Right, of course.
I like to try hard and get the right answer, and knowing that I wasn't always going to be able to get, the perfect answer or the exact right answer was something that I had to like kind of, take a breath and be like, all right, this is what it is.
Wow. Well, I thank you for sharing that as well. And I like what you said too about being conditioned to understand that you're going to fail. And I think that's the hardest part of a lot of us have, even just taking a leap of faith about anything. It's that fear of failure. I'm going to fail. But like you said, with an engineer, it's almost embedded that you fail, because that's how you learn. And that's what I'm learning now just with test and life. You don't look at it as a failure. It's a test. It's a lesson. So now I know what didn't work, so I can figure out what will work. So I like that you said that, because that is something that I think a lot of us, and especially as we come in more in the professional field, is that I'm scared. I don't want people to see, I'm a fail. And it's like, no, it's okay. They fail too,
Yeah.
So, but it's how you deal with it, how you stand up and you work through it. And like you said, with that test code, that's you do all this and then they say, okay, it failed. Okay. Keep, because I'm a teacher. So it's like when I design a test, I'm designing it so that my students will pass on the first time. When they have to take it again and again, then that's when I feel like a failure. But that's opposite with you. Is like, it's supposed to fail the first time so I can make it even better. And then each time it gets better. So it's just a different outlook and a different way of thinking. But both are needed. And so I like that. That's awesome. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. All right, Aicha, what was something you might want to change? Are you like,
Right. Yeah. I have to say, like, it's so cool to hear Faith's point of view, because it's definitely like so many things are like overlapping between like something that you think is like, oh, you're a student, like you should be organized, but everything about research is failure. In fact, we spend 5 years failing just to get one paper published.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, biggest thing is like fail. If you are being successful all the time, like you got to fail to really grow, I guess.
Yes.
To add something new. So that's really cool to hear, just from like my standpoint as like a PhD student. Like out in the real world, people are still failing.
Right.
I would say though, for I guess my job, I would say I think it's no secret that academia is not the most diverse, and I think that's something that I really want to change and work on. And I mean, I think we all know like academia is full of like old white men. That's what it's
It is.
so often said. But to be honest, like I think getting out there and finding, because I mean, there are definitely young women and young men of all sorts of backgrounds that are interested in this. It's just whether or not they have like the access to it. And I noticed here on this campus, like a lot of the students here have access to science at a very young age, but like that's not always what you're going to find in like the inner city. I actually just recently wrote a grant, and through writing the grant, I was talking to my mom because I remember her, she got me when I was really young a little microscope kit when I was,
I know, we all had
like
those.
something like that. And I mean, that was a hoot for me. It was amazing. And I remember asking her, like, why did you get that for me? I think she saw in me very early on that like I had a hankering for science, and it really resonated with me. And I didn't learn this, but just a couple months ago, that like she was always interested in STEM, and she always wanted a microscope kit, and she never got one in her youth. So I think hearing her story, like the story of my own mother, I think about that, and I think about other young girls who may be interested, but they never get the chance to explore that. And I really think something that is very unique in my position is that although this functions as my full-time job, I do have the ability to go and do outreach. I was very purposeful in finding a lab that would be okay with that, because in academia there can be like an overworking culture that's really common, but I was really purposeful in finding that, because to me, like, it means a lot to use the time that I have as like a PhD student and having this kind of freedom to also be able to go out and to go to communities that are predominantly like minority communities, and talk to the students and be like, I'm here, I'm a scientist. Like, you know, sometimes it's just looking at someone who looks at you and seeing them, whether
that's exactly why I started this.
Yeah, or a scientist, and being like, well, if I see a face like that, then maybe I can go into that too. And to be honest, I think it's moving in that direction. I mean, if you look at there's a lot more women that are applying and going to graduate school. But you know, we also want men of color, and you know, young women of color, and people from all sorts of backgrounds, because we, as you said before, we do need that diversity. So that's something I would change in my field.
That's awesome. Two things that I want to comment, because what you said was awesome. When you talked about failing and doing something for 5 years, failing just to get that one paper. On Tuesdays, I interview an educator and talk about their experience. So last night, Mr. Van Phillips, he's a young educator. He was going to law school. He changed and decided to go into teaching, but he failed the teaching exam 11 times. And each time paying $150. And I'm like, you're talking about failing and keep going and knowing that this, he's like, I knew it was my God's purpose. He said, but I grew up with a 2-parent household, and my father was a principal, so I didn't have it as rough. And so this allowed me to connect, because now he's an alternative ed teacher. So he said I needed to go through something so I could connect with my students and feel how they feel frustration and how they feel something. So he said, I truly believe I had to go through that process so I could learn how to handle them better, because I didn't have that in my life. And I was just like, that's so profound. And so when you said that, I thought about that, because sometimes we don't understand. It's building our character, it's building that momentum, it's building us something for later on that we don't even recognize. So I like what you said about that. Then another one, it just so happened today on my way home, my daughter, and I'll talk about this at the end, but we have a children's book, and her character is Nyla Nova, and so she's like the STEM superhero. So she always knows she's a scientist. She's like, Mommy, we're going to be a scientist this week, because we go and read the book and set up and stuff. So today when she got in the car, she was like, Mommy, you know why I say I'm a scientist? I said, no, why you say you're a scientist? Because scientists have to be smart, and I am super smart, and I am a scientist. She's 4 now. I am super smart and I am a science. I said, yes, you are, baby. You're a STEM station. So it just like they see that. And like you said, you're going into the community to show them that, and me as a teacher, and Faith, you as a software engineer, when they see us and you tell them what you're doing and you're reaching out, they like, I can do it too. But if they didn't see that, all they see is old white guys in the classroom, old white guys doing, Bill Nye on, the videos. So, hey, they gave me an idea. We need to do our own videos. We need to do our own teaching videos instead of Bill Nye. I know, okay, that's gave me an idea. But, that type of stuff, because they see us, even when I would walk in the classroom, they're like, you're a science teacher? Yes, I am. Like they don't, well, when? And they have 1,000 questions because some of them are up to now in their senior year. And I'm the first, like you say, forget female, male or female, science, color, woman or man of color scientists. So just to go through that experience and go through your whole educational career and not see one of us, then now I can go after that. I can do that. So that's what I got from what you said. And I thought it was awesome. Then you started talking about other stuff. I was like, hold on, we're going to come back to that. So what I want to ask you guys, because you are in predominantly white, whether it's males or females, but, in industries. And we are definitely changing it. I mean, I'd like to say, we're no longer Hidden Figures. But I think the movie Hidden Figures really put a spotlight on what was going on. And now, it became mainstream to be like, oh, we need to get more women of color. We've been fighting forever, but it's like it took that movie to kind of really get it more mainstream. So I know, I want to talk at this. Have you ever experienced where you might have been discriminated against, or some microaggressions, or just an incident that made you feel like, oh, they think less of me, or they doubting my abilities because of my skin color? And then how do you combat that? Like, what do you do to stay professional, but also check them if you need to? Or how do you handle that situation? So Faith, we'll start back with you, but how do you handle that?
Yeah, so, a little bit of backstory. When I arrived at make school, kind of before you get into the school, especially if you don't have a lot of programming background, you go through a program called the RAMP program. So this is for people who, don't have a whole lot of background, but they're going to get, ramped up really quick. So it's kind of intense and you learn a lot. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you ramp up. And so I did that program and I worked really hard, did really well, and took these classes. And so the next class that was coming in, they asked me to be a teaching assistant for the program. So it was like kind of full circle. It was really great. And I had, a lot of students and, people who I was tutoring who were very supportive, who thought it was really cool that because this was around the time that I got my job offer too. So they thought it was really cool that in a year I'd gone from being in that RAMP program to having a full-time offer. Mm-hmm. And so, I felt really good about that position. However, there were a couple of students who kind of thought they knew better than me. And I definitely felt like it was because I was a woman, potentially because I was a woman of color. I would get pushback. So, I had obviously a little bit more knowledge about a lot of difficult concepts. And so they would come to me and tell me, I'm not understanding this concept. So I would explain it to them and they would push back on a lot of the things that I would say while I was explaining it. And at one point with one of the students specifically, I had to tell him, listen, if you want me to help you, if you want to figure it out on your own, I am not opposed to that. Because sometimes people learn better that way. But if you're going to ask me to help you, you have to listen to what I'm saying. You can't interrupt me every time I say something.
Right.
So I think especially in teaching situations, for me personally, that's when I've encountered the most kind of pushback because of being a woman and having to really put my foot down and say, you don't understand this concept. I do. If you want me to explain it to you, you're going to have to listen. So yeah, I would say those are the kind of the situations where I felt that way, where I had to stand up for myself. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure. How about you, Aicha?
Yeah, so I would say thus far I've gotten really lucky in the interactions that I've had at UW-Madison and at Cleveland State University, in that I feel like I've heard a lot of really scary stories about what can happen in academia. Mm-hmm. And my heart goes out to those students who've dealt with that. But I would say I've just to like give a little background too. I've been really purposeful in trying to make sure that I sniff out the environment that I go into,
Oh.
because, and honestly, like I'm really grateful to people who do share their experiences on social media, because I've heard some really awful situations of just like lack of respect that people have found because of their gender or their race. And so I've been like, I mean, it sucks that you have to put in that kind of work, but I have really worked hard to make sure that if at all possible that I can avoid an environment like that, but they are out there, and like sometimes you just don't have a choice of, you just have
Right.
to get through it. I would say what I have experienced in my work and in my field is definitely um, like in a meeting, like being talked over, and like you said, I'm not sure whether it's because I'm a woman or if I'm soft spoken or my race, but it definitely, like, it sucks because you're like, I have this thing to say or I have a question, and someone will, with a bigger voice, maybe will like talk over you, and it takes like a lot of courage to do so. But I found that, like, if you just say like, hold on a moment, let me finish my thought, and
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
not at all
okay.
like rude or disrespectful, but it's taking a moment to say, I was talking and you can't just talk over me because you think what you have is more important to say. So like I definitely would say, just, if you can, just like take a moment and very respectfully just be like, I just need to finish what I'm saying, and go on. Like, don't even blink when you do it. Just like, just 1 second, I just need to finish what I'm saying, and da 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 da.
Well, it reminds me so much of Representative Maxine when she was like, "I'm reclaiming my time, reclaiming my time." Like this is almost like when you said that's why I laughed, because I could see her saying that. I could see you saying, "Let me finish my thought." Like,
Yeah, just let me finish my thought. Blah 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 blah. Go
yeah,
on and continue saying what you're saying at the same speed. Just like, don't give them a moment to say anything. Just go for it. And it takes a lot of courage. And I feel like for me, I know, like I said, I'm introverted, and when I say it, like I feel really uncomfortable saying it. But like, if not, like, what if what I needed to know was really important to me? Like getting what I need to do to contribute to this collaboration or this experiment. What if like that was something that I needed to know to like move forward, and I can't let my work suffer because you think your voice or your position is more important than mine. So I think obviously with every situation is to like breathe and always make it come from a place of respect, but like use your voice and know that there's nothing wrong with using it. And sometimes you have to, because some people, they think that they can step all over you. Sometimes you need to just be like, no no no, I have a voice, and I'm gonna
right. Like, kiss me.
yeah. So I would say that's been my experience. But like my heart definitely goes out to the people, because I mean, workplaces sometimes can be so toxic, and
Right. And then you have to go home and you're worn out and you're miserable at home and you got to go right back to work the next day. So I like what you said about being purposeful of picking your environment. And that would cut down on a lot. And as I'm transitioning my next role, I'm doing that as well. I tell my husband, I'm not going to take this just because it's like, well, we need something. I'm going to be purposeful because I can no longer be miserable or upset because I just kind of rushed through and just tried to take something because I'm like, out of fear. I need
right.
something, I need it. And so I like that you said about being purposeful. So I'm going to take that in for myself. Thank you for that word. All right, guys. So you guys are like the experts right now. What tips and advice would you give for someone? So maybe it's like, go a different route, or, learning about or getting a mentor. Like, what would you say would be one of the best tips that you can give to someone that's coming up behind you that maybe want to follow in your footsteps, going like to be a software engineer or a research scientist? So what would you tell them would be like the main thing that they would need to know? And so, Faith, we're on you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this definitely goes back to my first piece of advice is like, don't be afraid to make mistakes. It sounds really cliche, but I guarantee for anyone who's ever written a line of code, and you've seen that red squiggly line come up and you're like, oh no, you make mistakes. That's how you code. That's how you know what to fix. That's not how you know where to fix it. That's how you know what the language requires. That's how you know what your program is capable of doing. And it is embedded in programming. You have to make mistakes. Earlier you mentioned that, like, as a teacher, you write tests so that they'll pass the first time, right? But as an engineer, if I write a test and I'm expecting it to fail the first time and it passes somehow, then I know that there's something wrong there. So that's just like kind of a cultural thing that we get used to. I think the other big thing that I would say is make passion projects. So I went the non-traditional route to become an engineer. I don't have, like, I have studied a lot of CS concepts, but I don't have, like, I didn't do 4 years at Berkeley or something like that. And so because of that, my learning has been through making projects that I care about, making things that I like games, like making websites, like making apps with my friends, making things that I'm interested in. I was interested in, the transportation industry for a while. So me and my friends built a carpooling app. And so,
wow,
those are the things that help you learn. We had to interact with, like other websites and servers called APIs that would give us information, and some of them were difficult to interact with. And so we had to figure that out, and learning to do that. The reason we could keep going with it was because we knew what we wanted at the end of it. And so I think if you're if you are that student who's studying at a traditional college and you're learning like Java or C++ in your classes and you're kind of bored and maybe you're not making anything in your class, take the things that you're learning in class and make something on the side.
Yes.
Or get on Medium, get on Twitter, find a tutorial, get on YouTube, find a tutorial of something that you're interested in, like a platform game or something like that, and follow along with it. I think if you make something that you're passionate about or something that you care about, then you'll want to return to it, as opposed to just kind of writing code in order to exercise your fingers or whatever. You want to make something that makes you feel good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing, don't be afraid to fail. The last thing, this is actually super important, which is that collaboration is key. You have to ask others for help. There are a lot of people, I know, some of the folks who I've interacted with on Medium and on Twitter have been people who are programming by themselves. Maybe they're in a corner of the world where they don't have other people who they can code alongside. Like they're, the only person around them who has internet, or the only person who has a computer that's capable of running certain programs. And so they don't have a lot of people that they can talk to. But if you have access to the internet, there are other people out there who are trying to learn the same thing that you are. Even if you can't live code with them, you can interact with them. You can find other people to look at your code, to tell you what they think. And I think that,
that's amazing.
It's really important to collaborate with others. Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you for those wonderful tips. Aicha, how about yourself? What do you say?
Right. So specifically, if you want to go into research and scientists, and that it can depend if you want to stay in academia, if you want to go in industry, it's a little bit different. But I would say the biggest tip that I would give to someone who's interested in going into this field is to get into a lab. I know that's very specific, and it very much so, it means that you have to sometimes have access. And I would say if you don't have access at your university, apply to others, because they do have specific programs in other universities where they on purpose choose students that are not in their university to give other people opportunity. I would say it's very difficult, because if you want to apply to grad school, you might find it really hard if you don't have lab experience, which unfortunately it's kind of a system that is designed in a way that not everyone has access. But I would say if you can find yourself in a lab and get the experience, because I would say I have met people who say like research is super mundane. I would never do that in my entire life. People who say it's lovely and I would love to do it.
Right.
I think that really goes for maybe almost anything. Just like do a project version, get experience so that you know it's something that you want to take the path for, because I think all of these paths take a lot of conviction, energy, and purpose and determination. So just make sure that you want to do it by having that experience. And I think like while you are in that lab, it's so weird because you think like we're all scientists and we all like have our blinders on and we don't talk to other people, but it's actually there's a lot of politics and you do need to have a lot of connections. So networking is so key, being in a lab and networking and, doing good work so that whoever is the head of the lab would be willing to give you like a recommendation when you need to go to the next stage. And same thing goes for me right now. Like I've done that in my undergrad years, but I have to do it now. Like when I go off to conferences to present my research, I really do have to stay at the end of the day and hang around and talk to people, because that's how I'm going to get my job when I'm done with the PhD. It's very much so what you know and who you know. So it's a hard time to swallow, and sometimes it can be uncomfortable, but I would say that is it's going to take you far if you know people who are willing to like help you and push you. So definitely networking and practicing by getting that experience.
That is awesome. You guys gave some great tips. I'm writing them down for myself. Like, okay, network. But thank you. Well, we're towards the end of our time. And this is the part where you guys talk about your future goals and what's your next steps. And then if you are participating or plan on participating in like a mentoring or giving back program, then this is when you bring light to show that you do stuff outside of your job as well. So Faith, we'll start with you. So what is the future goals? And because we always say we want to bring you guys back, do like Oprah, where are they now? So, we bring you back. Where are we going to see Faith in 6 months, a year, 5 years? Like, what's your future goals?
Yeah, I think, 6 months to a year, I definitely want to be, so it takes a really long time to get used to any programming job. So I want to be more proficient in my current job. I definitely want to, to get to a point where like I'm a lot more effective and I'm, able to help with making decisions on the team. So that's, definitely where I see myself short term. Longer term, it's kind of hard to say. I live in Silicon Valley, so there's like, there's a lot going on in this town. It's also an expensive place to live, so, we'll see if I'll live here for a long time. But I think, long term, I definitely want to continue being an engineer. I think this is something that, makes me feel happy. It makes me feel alive. I love it when I'm able to fix a bug successfully. And I think I would want to be in a position, maybe a position of leadership where I'm able to mentor younger engineers, help them to, use that first 6 months of their job to get ramped up, and, kind of show them the way as well. And, that's something that I've been doing right now as well. I often volunteer with the Bay Area chapter of Black Girls Code. They do a lot of awesome workshops. They are amazing. They're so fantastic. I really love the organization. Every time I work with them, it feels so good. It's one of those volunteer experiences where you don't leave and you're like, did I really help them? Did I do anything? You can see it.
Okay, great.
And then there's another organization called Ignite. They also always need technical volunteers. And I volunteer with them often as well to speak on panels to girls at high schools, middle schools about technology, robotics, computer science, software, data. My company is actually, the larger company is a database company.
Oh, wow.
And we handle large amounts of data, specifically like time series data. So I get to talk to girls about what that looks like. If you have like a Google Home or something like that, an IoT device, or if you have data that's like serialized, like I get to talk to them about those kinds of things as well. And so, you know, outside of my life as like, you know, an engineer who's writing code, I also like to look at myself as like a mentor for people who are coming right behind me, you know. So yeah.
Sounds great. You're awesome. I can't wait. I mean, I know that you're doing great things. All right, Aisha, it's your turn. What are your future goals?
Right. So, well, I know I will be in a PhD program for at least 4 more years. That's I think, you know, the average PhD program is about 5.5 years. So I think definitely it's to have a PhD.
Yes,
Is
definitely.
the biggest goal. But as I mentioned, there's academia and then there's industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's just two of the options, but you can actually do a lot of different things with a PhD. One thing that I think is interesting is that the further you are in your career, the more you tend to not actually be at like the bench top or like doing the actual experiments. And so in knowing that, I've kind of thought about, okay, well, when I do get the PhD, I do think I did find that I have a big interest in the business of science.
Oh.
So that's like consulting, biotechs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm definitely trying to do internships and programs to learn more about how I can leverage the PhD to move into that sort of field, whether it's like, you know, doing consulting or dealing with like business and science in terms of finance. So I don't think academia is where I'm gonna end up staying, but for the time being right now, like I'm
Yes.
really happy here.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, and so I did also mention before that I'm in a really unique space where I have a lot of access to young students and people who are potentially interested in research. And so I definitely take advantage of that. And a lot of times, so like on in my campus, we have a program called SciMed, and it's just this program that is designed to bring more diversity into the university. And so we have an actual outreach committee, and so that's kind of the way I can kind of do this sort of work while you know, connecting it
Yeah.
to
Yes.
the campus. And so like this, even so we create a bunch of different programs and collaborations. Just to name a couple of them, like we have Science Saturdays where the general public will come in and we'll set up like these tables where we have like demonstrations of science, just to get like, and it's, you know, adults and kids both, and multiple ages. So we have sort of events like that. And then we also have events like this in 2 weeks on a Friday, we're going to be going to a high school to talk to high school freshmen about what it's like to go into research and to
That's awesome.
yeah. And so I would definitely say it's been really great because I've had opportunities to talk to massive groups, even bringing them into the lab and doing lab tours, to even going into specifically like areas that are predominantly Black neighborhoods or predominantly Hispanic neighborhoods, and creating events in collaboration and bringing a lot of people to go in and work together and bring science to those people who maybe it's not in their own home or right on their campus. So that has been a really great experience, and I really hope that like no matter where I go with my PhD, is that I still have the ability to have a position where I can still do that. Because I mean, whether it be through volunteering or if it's something that I can bring in myself and create a sort of organization to do that, it's something that I've always been interested in, and I definitely intend to keep it going throughout my career.
That is amazing. You guys are so awesome. I'm listening like, man, let me step on my resume. Let me do something. You guys are awesome. Well, this comes to the time where we have to wrap it up. And so this is where I always say you guys get to do your Oscar speech. This is where you get to thank any family members, mentors, advisors that you would like to, you know, that may see this or don't, you know, always be in the archives, but just to help you on your journey. And sometimes, like I say, I always call this the family influence, but I know family doesn't always have to be blood. So it's people that have helped you on your career. So Faith, this is your time. I'll give you the mic and the screen and let you say all your thankful, you know, everything, your Oscar speech. Go.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, definitely, like for me, my family, you know, is a big part of why I've been able to find success in this field. They've been, you know, kind of supportive of me. Especially have to thank my mom. She, you know, she took care of me. She's always been there for me. She's been someone who we don't always agree on everything, but she always supports me. And you know, my mom was someone who, you know, was interested in computer science a long time ago, but it was something that, you know, she wasn't able to realize. And so I think, you know, she's always proud of me whenever she's able to see the things that I'm doing. And
you're her baby. Yes.
Yeah, I love her, and I'm glad, you know, I'm glad that she's my mom. I also have to say big thank you to Make School, and you know, specifically, there's a teacher there, Alan Davis. He was, you know, my ally and my mentor when I was at Make School, and you know, he allowed me to work as a teaching assistant for him, and he supported me. And I have to thank my sisters, my older and younger sister, and my younger brother, but especially my sisters, because they both have been people who, you know, listen to me when things are difficult, and you know, they stand me even when I'm making mistakes. So.
Right, that's your sisters. They still gonna hold you accountable. Like, what you doing, girl? Get back in there. You know, they gonna push you and make sure you get it.
Yeah, I hope I'm not forgetting anybody, but those are the.
But that's for, you know, we know. Well, I can do that. Well, that's awesome. All right, Aicha, this is your Oscar speech. Who helped you get along? Who you want to thank? And you know, just especially with this journey, because we know without support of others, none of us would be here. You know, you always need that support. So, Aicha, it's your turn.
Right. I mean, it's been a village. So I, like, first and foremost, like, my parents, like my mom has always believed in me, and she's always tried to nurture whatever crazy ideas that I've come up with that I wanted to do. And like, she's definitely, you know, the fun parent. And you know, my dad was, I mean, while he was very like strict, but he really ingrained in me like my love of science and math. And I just remember growing up and him being like you, if you are able to, you know, learn these things and study them, like you were going to open like a whole new world. And like, I'm thankful to him to this day, because like the work ethic that I have is because of my parents, like because of both of them.
Yes.
You know, whether it be like forcing me to sit down and do my work when I wanted to like play around, or, you know, nurturing my wanting to play around with like buying me telescopes and weird sorts of like things that I could play with. So my parents are a huge part in where I am today. But then just like every single person who's stepped up to mentor me, from my undergrad to now, just like to name a few names, like my OChem teacher, her name was Dr. Vania DePaoli. The person who chose me to do an internship at UW-Madison, Dr. Gail Robertson, my PI now, Dr. Christian Cappuccini, like every single person who like looked at me and saw that there was potential there, and were willing to take the time to mentor me and work with me and believed in me, like that means so much to me. And them believing in me like helped me to believe in myself, because sometimes you second guess yourself, but like I've had them just be like, just do it. Like the worst that can happen is you get the answer of no. So they've been wonderful. And like every single other person who has mentored me in like any capacity, it's so beyond helpful. And then also my husband, who we got married earlier this year.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes. We've been together for 6 years, so he's very much so been in the long haul.
Yes.
The partner to someone whose days could go to like from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. But he's so supportive. And you know, he listens to me talk for hours about science, and I don't know, he says he's interested, whether or not he's pretending.
Right, that's how my husband like, listen, okay.
Right. He's been absolutely wonderful in this whole journey, and so I have a lot to thank him for. And yeah, and I mean, honestly, like I have two brothers. I would thank them too because they listen to my science nonsense too. And yeah, it's definitely been a village. Everyone's been super helpful to me getting here.
Well, I thank you both. This has been amazing. Like you guys are so sensational. Like it's just I feel fed. Like I feel good. Like to know you guys are out there on the forefront, that you're doing the work and you're there and you're being great representatives. Like, I know that people look at you, they're like, so those stereotypes and those things are slowly changing. So they can really see, like I said, we're no longer hiding our light or dimming our light. We are shining it bright. So I just want to thank you both for being here, taking the time out to do the questionnaire for your articles. Like I said, for our viewers, if you have not read their article will be in the comments, the link, but you can also find it on nyladene.com, which you can also find real quick. Hey, look at that. That just happens to be there. Who is Nyla Nova? And it's the story of Nyla Dene realizing that she's a science superhero and she turns into Nyla Nova. And so, like she said today, I'm a scientist because I'm super smart. And so that's just something we want to instill in all young girls. So you can get this at nyladene.com. Holidays are coming up. Just had to throw that in there. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys. I'm going to end the recording. But you guys stay on just so I can thank you some more. But thank you for being here. If you have not checked nyladene.com out, you can find their articles. You also can reach them in the articles. It has their emails or their Twitter handles or Instagram handles. So please, guests, please, viewers, check us out, check them out. Keep in touch. We guys want to keep in touch with you. We want to check back in with you because what you guys are doing are amazing, and we want to just continue to keep the conversations going. So thank you. All right. So I'm going to stop the recording, but guys just say bye. Hold on.